Hello, my name is Peter. Welcome to the Compliant Citizen, where we do everything the government asks us to do. Start the show. Hello, Casa Bea Cleaning. All right, I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry. All right, first of all, just having some fun. Happy Friday morning, everybody. Peter Range here with the Catholic Citizen, where we're not compliant. We don't do everything the government tells us to do because the government, well, we'll get into that in just a minute. But Casa Bea Cleaning, folks, they are the store that you need to patron because they patron us. They are tremendous, amazing people who keep your home and your office clean, especially during this era of COVID-19. Please patron Casa Bea. Go to casabeacleaninginfo.com. I'll get that eventually. All right, secondly, we need your help to keep the show going. We want you to become a citizen of heaven. That is the goal of the show. It's the goal of my life, is to get to heaven, get my family to heaven, and to get as many people to heaven as we can. But St. Teresa of Avila said it's heaven all the way to heaven. So why not become a citizen of heaven today? Check us out at thecatholiccitizen.com. You can become a patron. $3, $10, $100, $500 a month. We accept it all. So please patron us so we can keep the lights on and keep going. thecatholiccitizen.com today. All right, on today's show. The Biden budget, it's in peril, this $3.5 trillion package. And I just can't believe some of the things, and maybe this is why it's in trouble. Maybe some of the messaging from the Biden administration. So first and foremost, some of this Build Back Better is an appeal to, let's see, we got $79 billion for tax enforcement to make sure that your taxes are collected. Maybe we're going to harken back to the Obama years where we went after conservative organizations and made sure they were taxed especially. But also you have $25 million for bias training, because who knows what biases you're carrying that you need to be trained away from. And oh, don't worry, there's $3 billion for tree equity, because the trees just are not very equitable anymore. They're not being fair to one another. So let's make all trees equal. It's in the Biden Build Back Better budget. Secondly, maybe another reason why it's not getting passed. Jen Psaki, when asked whether or not companies would have to raise taxes because taxes were going to be, raise their prices because taxes were going to be raised on them, she said this about businesses. It's, quote, unfair and absurd that companies would increase costs for consumers in response to us taxing them more. Yeah. She's not run a business before in her life. Nancy Pelosi on the $3.5 trillion tax and spending spree said, quote, it's not about a dollar amount. The dollar amount, as the president said, is zero. Saying it's not going to add anything to the debt, right? Folks, these are the people in charge of the government. And this is why we have, according to usdebtclock.org, $28 trillion in debt right now as a country. $28 trillion in debt. Look, I've never taken any of the Dave Ramsey courses. I've never had any financial training, but I've just been taught some very basic lessons. Like I don't spend what I don't have. And that's served me pretty well and my family. So we're thankful that we're, not in any severe debt. However, the debt based upon what the government has at $28 trillion for each citizen right now is $229,000. That's how much debt you're carrying because the federal government continues to spend money it doesn't have. And leaders say that, this will cost zero, and that it's unfair and absurd that companies would raise their prices because they're being taxed more. How else does a company operate? A company operates to make sure it's in the black, that it's making sure that it can pay the bills. Otherwise, it can't exist. But our government thinks it can exist in perpetuity if it continues to spend money it doesn't have. It's a very dangerous cliff we're walking towards. Number two, the military testifies. So top generals, General Frank McKenzie and General Mark Miley, chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, each acknowledged in a public hearing this week that they advise the president, also Army General Austin Miller, that they advise the president that 2,500 troops should be left in the country of Afghanistan. Now, why is this big news? It's big news because George Stephanopoulos, in an ABC interview, asked President Biden this. He said, your top military advisors, this is well before the generals testifying, said your top military advisors warned against withdrawing on this timeline. They wanted you to keep 2,500 troops, George said to Biden in an interview. Biden replied, no, they didn't. It was split. That wasn't true. Stephanopoulos returned. So no one told, your military advisors did not tell you, no, we should just keep 2,500 troops. It's been a stable situation for the last several years. We can do that. We can continue to do that. Biden. No one said that to me that I can recall. Look, George, the reason why it's been stable for a year is because the last president said we're leaving. And here's the deal I want to make with you, the Taliban. And then he continues on. The president directly lied to you, the American people. Now, again, imagine in the media if there was a different president, a Republican president, forget President Trump, just a conservative president, and he flat out directly lied to the American people, saying that he did not receive from the top military advisors to remain or to keep 2,500 troops there in the country of Afghanistan. And then those same generals came and testified, said, yeah, we're under oath here. Yeah, we told them. Is this still he's everything the media told you the former president was. He's someone who continues to lie to you in front of the camera. Is that a very Catholic thing to do? Number 3, school propaganda. Washington schools bans pro-police flag, claiming it's too political, but permits at the same time a Black Lives Matter flag and an LGBT flag. A teacher in Washington state was ordered to take down a pro-choice or pro-police flag in her classroom over claims it was a political symbol, while messages supporting Black Lives Matters and the LGBT pride flags are allowed in the school. So, okay, number 4. In the middle of a pandemic where the Delta variant is raging and these progressive governors are saying it's the most dangerous thing we've ever had to face. We have to be very serious about this. We have to do all measures to make sure that people are safe. And again, I have a friend right now. Please pray for him, Greg. He's in the hospital recovering from being very sick. So we take sickness very seriously. We take COVID-19 very seriously. It can be very detrimental, especially if you have some comorbidities. However, if you look at the whole and you look at the absolute insanity by which some people are approaching this particular issue, it's just scary, folks. So of the 43,000 employees at New York City's 11 public hospitals, about 5,000 were not vaccinated. Okay? So the governor came out and said everyone needs to be vaccinated if you're working in a healthcare facility. Some people have been claiming religious exemptions. Some people have been claiming conscientious objections. But they said if you don't get the vaccine, they're not working through this with you. You're being let go. You're being fired. And you're not getting any severance. You're not getting any retirement. You're being fired without any compensation whatsoever. So in the middle of a pandemic, this is what Matt Walsh said, and I think it's just spot on. He says, quote, artificially creating a hospital staffing shortage while simultaneously claiming that a deadly pandemic is overwhelming the hospitals. This is one of the most twisted and evil things I've ever seen. So we're claiming we need everybody on board. It's dangerous. We have a hospital shortage because of COVID-19. But at the same time, we can go ahead and let go of these people who aren't vaccinated. Okay. And then you have the governor in New York coming out and talking about how she needs apostles and God has told her to tell you to take the vaccine and she needs you as the apostles to go out and spread the word about the goodness of the vaccine. And she wears a gold bracelet that says vaccinated on it. It's becoming some type of weird religion for people. And look, folks, the numbers just don't add up. Out of the Harvard Business School just this past week, they've moved classes online as COVID-19 has been breaking through, the cases soaring despite individuals in the Harvard Business School having 95% vaccination rate among students and staff. Story number 6. I have to revisit this. I've talked about this a little bit in each show, but it's just been striking me more and more because I saw a statistic the other day. Why does this media bias matter? Why do we need to cover this? Well, again, if you were just a normal person and you share the New York Post story right before the election about Hunter Biden, despite having no experience in this field whatsoever, being placed on Burisma's board, Burisma out of Ukraine, while your father was in charge of the foreign policy for Ukraine at the time, being placed on this oil and gas board for Burisma, where you have no experience, but you're getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for doing that, all while your father bragged on TV that he was going to get the head of Burisma fired if he didn't do something that he wanted him to do. And he was, they looked at President Biden's behavior for this. But the story broke that Hunter Biden had all these emails on his laptops talking about, hey, make sure we set aside some money for the big guy and so on and so forth. The story broke in the New York Post. The New York Post had their Twitter account suspended. And then anybody who tried to share this story, it was blocked. It was labeled false information. A year later, Politico comes out, which is a left-leaning, political magazine, and they've said, look, yeah, the story was true. Sorry about that. Sorry we blocked it and we said it was misinformation. Our bad. Well, I just saw the other day that 4.6% of Biden voters said that if they would have known about this story, they would have not have voted for him as president of the United States. And you think, well, 4.6 voters, I mean, that's not that much. Look, President Trump would have won Michigan, Wisconsin, Philadelphia, Arizona, New Mexico with 4.6%. It swung the election, folks. President Trump would have won the election probably with 289 electoral votes. What the control that the media has right now, it's literally affecting elections. And that's what it's all about. Media manipulation is all about control, because that's what people on the left, progressives, want. They want control. They don't want you to have a voice. If you don't believe me, just read their own words. The gubernatorial candidate, Terry McAuliffe in Virginia, just said in a recent debate, they were talking about teachers and schools and the transgender issue, what books that individual students were getting to read in schools that had really illicit sexual behavior. It was promoting an agenda from an LGBT perspective. And this is all accessible to young kids in school. And Terry McAuliffe says concerning this bill that was in the state of Virginia that he would not have signed it, which will enable parents more control over what their kids are reading in school. He said, quote, "I don't think parents should be telling schools what they should teach. I don't think parents should be telling schools what they should teach." Now, if you're a parent and you have some kids in schools, do you think you should have any say over what your child is learning in the school? Even just be brought to the table to talk about it? Or are you okay with them just being completely indoctrinated with whatever it may be? Because look, folks, we're being indoctrinated in all different labels or all different levels through all different institutions. I just read today, going back real quick to COVID-19, the vaccine, the discussion we've had. I didn't know this, but I think you should. And I got to look more into it. I got to read more about it. But I just read a story in Crisis Magazine from Janet Smith. My wife sent this to me. The Pontifical Academy for Life, the CDF, they've all been putting out statements about the vaccine, so on and so forth. And again, I'm a son of the church. I'm following church teaching when it comes to all of this. But there are individuals who are pro-abortion now in the Pontifical Academy for Life who are part of making these recommendations. How in the world are pro-abortion individuals on the Pontifical Academy for Life? Friends, for us lay Catholics who are trying to follow the Lord with all that we are, the best that we can, trying to be saints, it's going to be difficult. It is already difficult. It's a challenge. But we have to embrace the cross that's been presented to us now. And I want to leave you with the words of St. Rose of Lima. She heard this word from Jesus Christ, and she said this, quote, "Let all men know that grace comes after tribulation. Let them know that without the burden of afflictions, it is impossible to reach the height of grace. Let them know that the gifts of grace increase as the struggles increase. Let men take care not to stray and be deceived. This is the only true stairway to paradise. And without the cross, they can find no road to climb to heaven. My brothers and sisters, without the cross, we cannot climb to heaven. Without the cross, we don't get to experience the resurrection. Romans chapter 6, by being baptized into a death like his, we might rise to a resurrection like his. Look, folks, I don't know what you're struggling with. I don't know what's going on interiorly with you. I know it's been a difficult year and a half, 2 years for all of us as we've struggled through COVID-19 and the Black Lives Matter riots, the tumult of the election, the divisiveness in the country. Now is the time. Now is the time to be bold for Christ. I was at a pregnancy center benefit last night. I got to MC Abigail Pregnancy Services, and I just laugh because people talk about the pro-life movement just being pro-birth. And I attended Heartbeat of Toledo, which is 50 years of service to women in the community. Even before Roe v. Wade came about, they were here. Abigail Pregnancy Services, 31 years of service to moms, dads, and unborn children in the community that help them well beyond birth with diapers and formula and food and rent assistance, all these things that women need to survive and thrive if they're having an unexpected pregnancy. And over again, I hear this word that we're just pro-birth. How many pro-choice centers? I mean, you go into Planned Parenthood. Are they providing diapers? Are they providing formula? No. They're giving you birth control. They're giving you hormonal treatments to change your gender. And they're giving you abortions. That's what Planned Parenthood is doing. So for us today as Christians, look, the pro-choice side, they're bold. The progressive left, when it comes to mandates and what they're trying to force on the country, they're bold. They're out there. It's time for us as Christians, so said this pastor last night, Reverend Ricky, is just fantastic. It is time for us as Christians to be bold as well, to boldly proclaim the truth in love and mercy, but to boldly proclaim it, to call out our brothers and sisters if they're going against the law of the Lord. Look, we've become overly tolerant of ideas in our society today. We are to be tolerant of every person, of every background, of every race, but we do not need to be tolerant of every idea. There are some ideas that are bad, that are wrong. Friends, we'll talk to you next week on The Catholic Citizen. Thanks for sticking around with me as we cover this week's news from a Catholic perspective. If you like the show, if you want to see it continue, please go to thecatholiccitizen.com. We will not comply.